Ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters in Christ, today I want to talk about something that speaks deeply to the heart of our journey with God. Don't force what's meant to end. Protect your peace. There are seasons in life when God allows certain doors to close, certain relationships to fade, and certain chapters to end. But too often we try to hold on. We cling to what is comfortable. We fight to keep alive what God is calling us to release. And in the process, we lose our peace. God is not a God of confusion, but of order. And when He calls you out of something, it is never to leave you empty. It is to prepare you for what's next. The problem is, we sometimes mistake endings for failures, when in reality, endings are divine invitations. They are invitations to trust Him more, to walk in faith, and to step into the new thing He is doing. If you have ever found yourself drained, restless, or anxious because you are holding on to something that no longer fits the season you are in, this message is for you. Because protecting your peace is not just about feeling calm, it is about staying in alignment with the will of God. Peace is the confirmation that you are where you are meant to be, and when peace leaves, it is often the Spirit of God nudging you to move. Recognizing when a season has ended is one of the most important lessons we can learn in life, because everything under heaven has a time and a season. God Himself established this principle in His Word, reminding us that there is a time to plant and a time to uproot, a time to build and a time to tear down, a time to embrace and a time to refrain from embracing. The difficulty we often face is that we grow attached to certain seasons. We grow comfortable in certain situations, and we become emotionally tied to certain people, opportunities, and places. When God begins to shift us into something new, we can easily resist that shift and try to hold on to what He is asking us to release. Recognizing when a season has ended requires discernment, prayer, and a willingness to surrender our own will in exchange for His. Sometimes the signs that a season has ended are subtle, and other times they are loud and unmistakable. You might start to feel a loss of peace where you once felt at home. You might notice that doors that used to open easily are now closing. Opportunities that once brought joy may now feel heavy. Relationships that once encouraged you may start to feel strained or toxic. These are not always signs that something is wrong. They can be signs that something is over. We often misinterpret these shifts as failures, thinking that we have done something wrong, but many times it is simply the Spirit of God moving us on to the next assignment. When you ignore these signs and try to keep a season alive that God has already closed, you will feel exhausted. You will find yourself striving instead of thriving. You will spend energy trying to make things work that were never meant to last forever. God is a God of purpose, and when a season is done, there is no grace to stay there. Grace is found where He is leading you next, not where He used to have you. That is why it is so important to stay sensitive to His voice. He will often whisper before He shouts, giving you gentle nudges before allowing circumstances to make the message louder. Prayer is key when you sense a season might be ending. Instead of panicking or clinging tighter, go to God and ask Him to confirm what He is doing. Ask Him to give you peace about the shift and courage to obey if He is calling you to move forward. Sometimes recognizing the end of a season will require you to quiet the noise around you so you can hear His voice clearly. There will always be people who want you to stay where you are because it benefits them, but you must be more concerned with pleasing God than pleasing people. Another part of recognizing when a season has ended is learning to look at endings through the lens of faith instead of fear. Fear will tell you that letting go will leave you empty. Fear will tell you that nothing better is coming, that this is as good as it gets, and that moving on is too risky. Faith, on the other hand, reminds you that God is faithful, that He knows the plans He has for you, and that every ending is a divine setup for a new beginning. Faith shifts your perspective from loss to expectation. This process can be painful because it may involve saying goodbye to people you love, places you have known, or dreams you once held dear. But pain is not always a sign you are on the wrong path. Sometimes it is the sign that you are being stretched, pruned, and prepared for greater things. Think of a tree that must shed its leaves in autumn. To the outside observer, it might look like death, But in reality, it is preparation for new growth in spring. Your life works the same way. You will know a season has ended when staying where you are cost you your peace, your joy, and your sense of purpose. You will know it has ended when forcing it feels unnatural, when it takes more energy to stay than to go, and when God begins to open new doors in another direction. It takes courage to admit when something is over, but the quicker you recognize it, the quicker you can step into what is next without unnecessary struggle or delay. Releasing what no longer serves your spirit is one of the most liberating yet challenging steps you will ever take on your journey of faith and personal growth, because we are creatures of habit and comfort, and we hold on to things far longer than we should. Sometimes we hold on to relationships that drain us because we fear being alone. Sometimes we cling to habits and patterns that feel familiar even though they are destructive. Sometimes we hold on to old mindsets, unforgiveness, or bitterness because letting go feels like losing control. But carrying these things weighs down your spirit and keeps you from walking fully in the peace and freedom God desires for you. Letting go begins with acknowledging that not everything or everyone is meant to go with you into the next chapter of your life. There are relationships that were right for a season, but have now run their course. There are opportunities that once blessed you, but are no longer aligned with where God is taking you. There are habits that once helped you cope, but now hinder your growth. Releasing these things is not about rejecting them or pretending they never mattered. It is about recognizing that their purpose in your life has been fulfilled and making room for what is next. One of the main reasons people struggle to release what no longer serves them is fear. Fear whispers that if you let go, you will lack. Fear convinces you that this is the best you will ever have, that no one else will love you, that no other opportunity will come, that you will never recover. Fear keeps you stuck in cycles that rob you of joy and peace. Faith, on the other hand, calls you to trust that God has something better prepared, something that will feed your spirit instead of depleting it. Faith calls you to loosen your grip on what is fading so that your hands are free to receive what is coming. Releasing is not just about people or opportunities. It is also about releasing the internal burdens you carry. Let go of guilt over what you cannot change. Let go of shame over who you used to be. Let go of resentment toward those who hurt you will keep you chained to the pain of the past. Forgiveness does not mean what happened was okay. It means you refuse to let it poison your spirit any longer. Releasing emotional and spiritual burdens is how you lighten the load so you can run the race set before you with endurance. Sometimes God will help you release things by allowing discomfort to grow until you can no longer stay the same. You may notice that certain environments no longer feel peaceful or certain conversations leave you feeling spiritually drained. Pay attention to these signs because they are invitations to evaluate what is feeding your soul and what is harming it. Anything that consistently steals your joy, fills you with fear, or pulls you away from God is something you must consider letting go. The act of releasing often comes with grief because it feels like loss, and in some ways it is a loss, the loss of familiarity, the loss of what could have been, the loss of the version of yourself that existed in that season. But it is also an act of faith. It is saying, God, I trust you enough to leave this behind because I know you are leading me to something better. The pain of release is temporary, but the reward of obedience is lasting. Releasing what no longer serves your spirit creates space for peace, space for joy, space for new relationships and opportunities that align with your purpose. If your hands are already full, you cannot receive what God is trying to give you. Sometimes blessings are delayed not because they are not ready, but because you are not ready to receive them. You are still holding on to what God has asked you to put down. The sooner you release, the sooner you make room for His best. This process is not always easy, and it often requires daily surrender. You may have to remind yourself every morning that you have chosen to let go, chosen to forgive, chosen to trust. And each time you choose release over resistance, you grow stronger, lighter, freer. You start to feel your spirit lift as the heaviness that once weighed you down begins to disappear. Trusting God's timing over our own, is one of the greatest demonstrations of faith because it requires surrendering not just what you want, but when you want it. We live in a world that constantly pushes us to rush, to strive, to force results, and to make things happen on our own timeline. But God's ways are higher than our ways, and His timing is perfect even when it does not align with our expectations. When we try to force doors open that He has closed or try to speed up seasons that He has ordained for waiting, we end up frustrated, exhausted, and often out of alignment with His will. Trusting His timing means believing that He sees the full picture when we can only see a small piece, and that He knows not just what is best for us, but when it is best for us. Many of the delays we experience in life are not denials, they are preparations. Sometimes God is preparing you for what He has already prepared for you. There are times when you are not ready to carry what you are asking Him for. If He gave it to you too soon, it could crush you rather than bless you. Waiting seasons are where character is built, faith is stretched, and trust is deepened. This is where God teaches you to depend on Him, to rely on His provision, and to be content with His pace. Even in the silence, He is working. Even when it feels like nothing is happening, things are moving into place that you cannot yet see. Forcing your own timing can lead to unnecessary pain. Think of the story of Abraham and Sarah who were promised a child. When they grew impatient, they tried to fulfill the promise in their own strength, and Ishmael was born. This decision created conflict and heartache that lasted for generations. God still fulfilled His promise in His time, but the lesson remains: rushing ahead of God only complicates the journey. When you trust His timing, you avoid the weight of consequences that come from acting outside of His will. Learning to trust God's timing also means being willing to stay where you are until He releases you. There will be times when you are eager to move on, but He keeps the door closed because there is still something you need to learn in the current season. Patience is not passive, it is active trust. It is choosing to remain faithful, to keep showing up, to keep obeying even when you do not see immediate results. Patience is worship because it declares, I believe you are in control, and I will not move until you say move. One of the ways God teaches us to trust His timing is by allowing delays that seem inconvenient, but are actually divine protection. What you think is a missed opportunity may be God shielding you from something that was never meant for you. The person who walked away, the job that did not work out, the plan that fell apart, all of these can be God's way of redirecting you towards something far better than what you had in mind. His timing is not just about giving you what you want, it is about aligning everything for your good and His glory. This kind of trust requires daily surrender. It means waking up and choosing to let go of anxiety about the future, choosing to believe that God has already gone before you, and choosing to rest in the fact that what is meant for you will not pass you by. Trust in His timing silences fear because it reminds you that the one who holds time also holds you. You are not late. You are not behind. You are exactly where you are meant to be as long as you are walking in obedience to Him. Trusting God's timing over your own also means you must resist the pressure to compare your journey to someone else's. It is easy to look at what others have achieved and feel like you are falling behind, but you do not know what God is doing behind the scenes in your life. Their path is not your path, and their timeline is not your timeline. Comparison only breeds discontentment and impatience, which can tempt you to force what God is asking you to wait for. The beauty of trusting God's timing is that when things finally do come together, they come together with peace, with favor, and with grace. You will not have to manipulate circumstances or compromise your values to make it happen. You will know it is God because it will flow, it will align, and it will bear fruit. Guarding your mind and heart is one of the most powerful ways to protect your peace and stay aligned with God's purpose, because what you allow into your inner life will eventually shape your outer life. The thoughts you entertain, the voices you listen to, the words you meditate on, and the influences you expose yourself to all have the ability to build you up or break you down. The heart is the wellspring of life, and the mind is the battlefield where victory or defeat is decided long before it shows up in your actions. If you do not guard these areas carefully, you will find yourself burdened, anxious, and distracted from the path God has set before you. Guarding your mind begins with paying attention to what you think about. Not every thought that crosses your mind is from God, and not every thought is worth holding on to. The enemy's primary tactic is to plant seeds of fear, doubt, discouragement, and comparison, hoping you will water them with your attention until they grow into strongholds. You must become intentional about filtering your thoughts through truth. When fear tells you that you are not enough, you remind yourself of God's word that says you are fearfully and wonderfully made. When doubt whispers that nothing will change, you hold on to the promises of God that say He is working all things for your good. Part of guarding your mind is being mindful of the voices you allow to speak into your life. This includes people, media, music, books, and social media. Every voice you listen to is sowing seeds, and over time, those seeds will produce a harvest. If you constantly feed on negativity, gossip, anger, and fear, it will show up in your attitude, your words, and your decisions. But if you feed on encouragement, wisdom, and truth, you will grow in peace and strength. Be selective about who you give access to your mind and spirit, because not every voice deserves a place in your inner circle. Guarding your heart is just as important, because your heart is where your emotions, desires, and affections lie. When your heart is unguarded, you are vulnerable to offense, bitterness, and emotional manipulation. People will hurt you, disappoint you, or misunderstand you, and if you allow those wounds to go unchecked, they will poison your heart and rob you of peace. Forgiveness is one of the most powerful ways to guard your heart, because it closes the door to bitterness. Forgiveness is not about excusing what happened, but about refusing to carry the weight of it any longer. Another way to guard your heart is by setting healthy boundaries. You cannot give everyone unlimited access to your time, energy, and emotions. Boundaries are not about building walls of isolation, but about creating gates that allow what is healthy in and keep what is harmful out. If a relationship consistently drains you, disrespects you, or leads you away from God's peace, you have a responsibility to guard your heart by setting limits. Your environment also plays a major role in the condition of your mind and heart. Surround yourself with people who speak life, encourage growth, and push you closer to God. Create a home and personal space that promotes peace rather than chaos. Spend time in prayer, worship, and scripture, filling your mind with what is true and noble, so that when challenges come, you have a reservoir of truth to draw from. Guarding your mind and heart requires consistency. It is not something you do once, but a daily practice. Every morning, you decide what you will focus on, what you will consume, and how you will respond to what happens around you. Life will always have challenges, but you get to choose whether you will let those challenges steal your peace, or whether you will hold on to the truth that God is in control. When your mind and heart are guarded, you become unshakable. The storms may come, but they do not uproot you, because you are anchored in truth. You are not easily swayed by opinions, circumstances, or emotions, because you know who you are and whose you are. You move through life with clarity and stability, making decisions from a place of peace rather than panic, and that allows you to stay aligned with God's plan for your life. Embracing the new thing God is doing requires faith, courage, and an open heart, because stepping into the unknown can feel uncomfortable and even frightening. Many people miss what God is trying to do in their lives because they are too busy looking back at what was or clinging to what is familiar. Yet throughout Scripture, God continually calls His people forward, asking them to leave behind old patterns, old places, and old ways of thinking, so that they can walk into the future He has prepared. The new thing God is doing is not meant to harm you, but to bring you into greater alignment with His plan, to expand your capacity, and to take you to a deeper level of purpose and growth. Embracing something new often begins with letting go of what is old, which is why it feels so difficult. You cannot hold on to the past and fully step into the future at the same time. God told Israel through the prophet Isaiah to forget the former things and not dwell on the past, because He was doing a new thing that's already springing forth. The same is true for you. Dwelling on what used to be will blind you to what is being birthed right now. You may miss opportunities because you are too focused on what is behind you instead of what is ahead. Fear is one of the greatest barriers to embracing the new. Fear of failure, fear of rejection, fear of the unknown can all paralyze you and keep you stuck in cycles that feel safe but are actually limiting your growth. Fear tells you to stay where you are because change might be risky, but faith reminds you that if God is leading you, He will also equip you. The moment you decide to trust Him and step out of your comfort zone is the moment you begin to see doors open that you never imagined. Embracing the new thing God is doing will often require a shift in mindset. You cannot step into a new season with an old mentality. The way you thought in your last season may not serve you in the one ahead. God may be calling you to think bigger, to believe for more, to release old limitations, and to see yourself the way He sees you. Renewing your mind with His Word is critical during times of transition because it helps you replace doubt and fear with truth and confidence. Sometimes the new thing God is doing will not look like what you expected. It may come in a form you did not recognize or take you in a direction you never planned. This is why it is important to stay flexible and sensitive to His leading. When you embrace the new, you are saying yes to God's creativity, yes to His surprises, yes to His divine detours that may seem inconvenient at first, but are actually orchestrated for your good. You may also face opposition when you step into something new, because not everyone will understand what God is doing in your life. Some people will try to hold you back because they are comfortable with the version of you they have always known. Others may question your choices or criticize your decisions because they cannot see the vision God has placed in your heart. This is why you must stay rooted in prayer and keep your ears tuned to His voice above every other voice. Embracing the new is not about rushing it blindly, but about walking in step with the Spirit. It is about taking one step at a time in faith, trusting that God will reveal the next step when it is time. The path may not always be clear, but as long as you keep moving forward with Him, you will not miss what He has prepared. There is also a sense of excitement that comes when you fully embrace what God is doing. Even if the road ahead is unknown, there is joy in knowing that you are part of His unfolding plan. You begin to look forward to what each new day holds because you believe that He is at work, opening doors, creating opportunities, and aligning circumstances in your favor. Walking forward in faith and peace is the natural outcome of trusting God completely, because when you know that He is with you and guiding your steps, fear loses its grip and anxiety begins to fade. Faith is not merely believing in God's existence. It is actively relying on Him as you take each step into the unknown. It is waking up every day with the confidence that He has gone before you, that He is beside you, and that He will never leave you. Peace is the evidence of that faith. It is the inner calm that allows you to move forward even when circumstances are uncertain, even when the path ahead is not fully visible. Faith is not the absence of questions. It is the decision to trust God despite the questions. When you walk forward in faith, you acknowledge that you do not have all the answers, but you know the one who does. You choose to believe that His plan is better than yours, even when His plan requires you to leave your comfort zone or take a step that feels risky. Faith always requires action. It is not passive or stagnant. It moves you. When God calls you out of one season and into another, faith is what enables you to take that first step. Peace is what sustains you as you keep walking. Peace does not mean there is no storm around you. It means the storm does not get inside of you. It is the calm that allows you to hear God's voice when everything else is loud. It is the stillness that allows you to wait for His timing without panicking. When you walk forward in faith and peace, you are no longer tossed back and forth by fear, worry, or the opinions of others. You become steady, grounded, anchored in the truth of God's promises. There will always be moments when walking forward feels intimidating because stepping into new territory can be uncomfortable. But peace reminds you that you are not alone, and faith reminds you that God has equipped you for this moment. When Joshua was called to lead Israel into the promised land, God repeatedly told him to be strong and courageous and reminded him that he would be with him wherever he went. That is the same as God gives you as you step into your next chapter. Walking forward in faith and peace also requires that you stop rehearsing the past and start focusing on what is ahead. You cannot keep looking back at what was and expect to move confidently toward what will be. Faith fixes its eyes on the future, on the promises yet to be fulfilled, on the hope that God is still writing your story. Peace comes from knowing that whatever lies ahead, God has already provided for it. This journey may require you to silence fear on a daily basis. Fear will try to convince you to turn back, to stay stuck, to delay your obedience. But every time you choose faith over fear, you grow stronger. Every time you choose peace over panic, you strengthen your spirit. You learn that the same God who carried you through the last storm will carry you through this one. You become more confident that His grace will meet you every step of the way. As you walk forward, there will be opportunities to worry about what you cannot control, but this is where faith becomes practical. Instead of wasting energy on what might go wrong, you begin to focus on what God is doing right now. You learn to celebrate small steps, small victories, small confirmations that you are on the right path. Faith keeps you moving, and peace keeps you grounded. Sometimes the path will be clear, and other times you will only see the next step. That is why walking forward in faith is so powerful. It teaches you to depend on God moment by moment, trusting Him for daily bread, daily strength, and daily direction. And as you do, you discover that peace is not something you have to chase. It is something that follows you because your trust is in the right place.